Well, hello Internet, and welcome to my JavaScript game design tutorial. In this one tutorial, you're going to create a complete game from start to finish. And along the way, you're going to learn how to receive user input, handle collision detection, movement, how to design a user interface, how to play sounds, and a whole bunch of other different things. All of the code that is heavily commented is available in the description underneath the video, as well as a link to actually play the game and the sounds used. And now I'm going to jump over and show you the finished game. Okay, so here it is. We're going to be designing Pong and creating it from start to finish, and basically we're going to be able to play it, and you can hear sounds playing also, and the AI is going and finding the ball, and so forth and so on. So we are now going to jump over, and I am going to, you can also see it goes and updates the interface as we play, and the AI beat me, and now I'm going to jump over and start writing the code. Okay, so to start off, in the same directory, what you're going to want to do is create a couple files. One of them is called jstut10.html. Another one's going to be called pong.js, and then mainstyle.css. And also, if you want to play the sound, you're going to need this beep wave file, which, like I said, if you click in the description, you can get all that stuff. I'm going to mainly focus on the JavaScript, but I just wanted to cover exactly what is going on with our HTML page. This right here is setting that everything is going to be in English. We're using a UTF-8 character set, which just is a way of defining what type of characters you're going to be putting in your web page. On this line right here, we're basically saying that we want the viewport, whatever the device is, the width for the device where the page is loaded to be equal to the width of my content. Here I'm defining the title. Here I am linking to my style sheet that we're going to talk about here in a second. Here we are linking to my JavaScript code. And then down in the body, what I'm going to have to do is put in the canvas, which is what we're going to be drawing on. And to do that, we go canvas, and I'm going to give it an ID so that I will be able to target it and then draw inside of it. And I'm going to call it my canvas. And then we just close that off. And then also what I'm going to be doing is loading some audio, the beeping noise. And I also have to give it a ID so that I can reference it. And I'm just going to call it beep sound. And style is going to be display none. So it's basically just going to be hidden there on the screen. And then we just close that off, and there we go. And that is all we're going to do on the HTML side. Over here in mainstyle.css, I am going to say that I want everything to be centered. I want the background to be white. You can change that to black, then the whole thing will be black. And I want to put a margin on it. And this little hash symbol here basically means I am targeting the ID for the element that's called my canvas. And that is all we're going to do with mainstyle.css. And now what I'm going to do is think about what our game is going to look like. Okay, so whenever we are designing our game, we have to think mainly about where we are going to place everything and how far apart everything is going to be. So I'm going to define the total game board size as 1400 pixels wide and 1000 pixels tall. I'm going to say that the ball is going to start in the exact center part of our canvas. And you can get the exact center part by just going canvas.width and divide it by 2, and then do the same thing for height, and then you got your ball in position. Going to do the same thing for my paddles, except I'm going to separate them from the wall by 150 pixels. And we can just go and get canvas width minus 150, and we can position those guys inside of there. And they're just rectangles, obviously. For scoring, we just are going to move the scoring areas down 100 pixels from the top of the canvas. And whenever you're working with the canvas, the upper left-hand corner is going to be your 0, 0 mark on the XY axis. Of course, this goes X and this goes Y, and then they are going to increase as they move to the right or move down. And understanding all of those numbers is going to be enough for us to start building everything. All right, so I'm over inside of pong.js, which is where all our JavaScript code will be. And basically what I need to do here to start off is just think about all the things I'm going to need. Well, I'm going to need the canvas itself, so I'm going to put that inside of there. And let just provides me the option of referencing the canvas. It is a storage area that I will link to the canvas with. Okay, and then after that, I have to create a thing called a context, which is going to be what is going to provide all the functions that are going to be used to draw on the canvas. Another thing I'd like to do is monitor the movement directions or lack of movement for both the paddles and the balls. So I'm going to create direction, and then I'm going to assign all the potential values for direction. So I'm going to say that an element, either a paddle or a ball, can be stopped, meaning not moving, or it could be moving upwards, or downwards, or left, or to the right. And this just provides a nice readable way for me to define the movement of all of my elements on my screen. Now what I need to do is come in here and create a class, which is just going to be a way to define what all of the paddles, all of the attributes of a paddle. And I have to create a constructor, which is going to be a function that is called whenever any of my paddles are created. And I'm going to say that I'm going to allow the user to define if a paddle is on the left or right side of the screen whenever it's created. I then am going to define the width of my paddles. And this is just a way to refer to an object. A class is a blueprint for creating objects. And this, because I don't know what the object's name is a way of referencing that. I'm going to say that I want the paddle width to start off as 15 in pixels. And then I'm going to say that my height is going to be 65 pixels. I'm then going to put the paddle either on the left or right side. And I'm going to do that by going and defining its X position, because we're drawing on the XY axes. And to do that, I'm going to say, okay, well, if they entered left up here for side, then this guy is called the ternary operator. And if this is going to be true, what it does is it assigns to the value of X 150, as you saw previously. And if it is not equal to left, then what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, what is the canvas width? And subtract 150. And I'm referencing that drawing that I showed you just a second ago. I then have to define the Y position for the upper left-hand corner of our canvas. And that's just going to be equal to the canvas height divided by 2, so that I put it in the center of the canvas. I'm then going to also tie in or store the score for each of the paddles, which is going to start off at 0. Then I'm going to define the movement direction of our paddles whenever they first show up on the screen. Well, when they first show up on the screen, we don't want them to have any movement, so we're going to say that the direction is going to be stopped. And then we have to also define how quickly the paddles can move on the screen. And you can play around with this to make the game either less difficult or more difficult. And that is basically everything we need to define for every paddle that we ever create. Now I'm going to do the same thing for our balls. And here we go. So again, constructor, I'm going to say, give it the option of providing a new speed. Again, if you want to mess around with difficulty. I'm going to say that there is going to be a width, then I'm going to make that width be 15. And whoops, height is also going to be equal to 15. And I have to also decide where I want to position it. And that is going to be equal to the canvas width divided by 2. Just as we saw before, and when the ball was in the center of the screen. I'm going to also define the Y position to be the canvas height divided by 2. I'm then going to define the movement position, the movement direction, and because our ball moves to the left and right as well as up and down, I'm also going to have to define a X and Y movement direction. But of course, when the game starts, it is not going to have any, so it's going to be stopped. Then I'm going to do exactly the same thing for monitoring the Y movement direction. And then, of course, we are going to define whatever the ball speed is. And here, that is going to be whatever new speed was passed in. It's right here. Okay, so now I have the ability to create balls and paddles and the canvas and context. What else am I going to need? Well, I'm going to store inside of here the player, which is going to be whoever plays the game. I'm also going to have an AI player. I'm also going to need a reference to balls. As I'm thinking, I'm also probably going to want to know or be able to find out if the game is currently in run mode or not. And that means the ball's bouncing around on a screen. I'm going to say that I do not want it to currently be running when it starts up. I'm also going to want to know when the game is over, because then I can put up the screen that says the player or the AI won. I also am going to want to put in a delay so that after scoring, there's like a 1 second delay before the ball starts moving again. Going to want to also monitor who I am going to be targeting with the ball. So I'll say, call this target for ball. And also I'm going to want to reference my beeping so that I can play sounds whenever the ball hits the paddles. And that sounds like pretty much everything that I'm going to need to have this game going. All right, so what I want to do now is create a startup function that is going to be called whenever the web page is loaded. To do that, you go Document, Add, Event, Listener, and the specific thing for listening for the page to be loaded is DOM content loaded, and that means I can start drawing on it. And I'm going to create a function called setUpCanvas that's going to be called whenever the page is ready to be worked with. Now what I did, I went and spent the beginning here figuring out what type of things I'm going to need. Now I need to figure out what type of functions I'm going to need. This is a comment when you put 2 dashes like that. Well, I'm obviously going to need setUpCanvas because I referenced it right here. I'm also going to need a way to draw on the canvas. I'm also going to need a way to update our canvas. And inside of the update area, I'm going to do things like move the ball, move the paddles, update scores, whole bunch of things. Probably going to need a function that's going to allow me to move my player paddle. Also going to need something that is going to allow me to stop my player paddle. Also, we're going to need the ability to reset the ball position in the middle of the screen. And another thing is I'm going to have to create a looping function that is going to update the screen and then draw it. So this guy is just going to loop, calling update and draw over and over and over again. And the final function that I forgot is that I'm going to want to add a delay after a scoring opportunity has commenced. And there you go. So this is all of the abilities that I want my program to be able to handle, and this is all of the different parts of my program. And now I'm going to jump in and create setUpCanvas. All right, so what are we going to need to do whenever we set everything up? Well, let's go and create setUpCanvas. And whenever it starts off, it's not going to be passed anything. First thing we're going to need to do is set up a way to work with our canvas. And how you do that is you go Documents, Get Element by ID. And if you remember before, I called my canvas. And that's all you need to do. Then you need to go and get all of the functions so that you can draw on your canvas. And how you do that is you say canvas, get context. And we are going to be drawing in 2D, so I'm going to put 2D inside of there. I then need to define the width and height for my canvas. And how you do that is go canvas width, and remember the drawing I had, that's 1400. And the canvas height is going to be equal to 1000, also like I had on that diagram. I'm going to create my player on the left side of the screen. And how you do that is you go New Paddle, because I called it Paddle, and I want it on the left side of the screen. So there you are. I'm also going to do the same thing for my AI paddle, and I'm going to call this AI Player, just like I did up here. See, AI Player. And that is going to be on the right side of the screen. I could put anything inside of there because I only checked for left, but whatever. I then need to create a ball. So I'll just say New Ball. And I'm going to say that to start off, its speed's going to be set at 7. And then I'm also going to define that I want my AI paddle to be a little bit slower than both the ball as well as myself. And again, this is something you could mess with if you want to change difficulty. When the game starts off, I want the target of the ball to be the player. I'm going to also set a delay amount between all of our scores. So I'm going to say delay amount is going to be equal to, based off of the current time. And how you get the current time is you go date and get time. And we'll be using that a little bit later on. I want to be able to play sounds. So to go and get the sound, which has to be in the same directory as all of your code, you go get element by ID, and I'm going to assign the sound inside of my code. And how you do that is you go beep sound and source and reference the beep wave file that you have in the same directory. And then I need to set it up so that I'll be able to handle keyboard input from the user. How you do that is you go document, add event listener, and I'm going to say whenever the key is in the down position, I want to call a function called move player paddle, which I will create in a bit. And then I'm also going to say that whenever the key is released, and this is keys on the keyboard, whenever the key goes up again, I'm going to call a function called stop player paddle. And that is all I need to do for my setup, except to call a function called draw, which is going to draw everything. Okay, so there's the whole setup. So what are we going to do in our draw function? Well, just create it and draw. It's not going to receive anything. It's just going to draw stuff on the screen. First thing I want to do is I want to clear every single thing that is on my canvas. And I need to do this every single time. Otherwise, whenever you draw on the canvas, you'll just draw over top of what's already there. And to clear the entire thing, I just go canvas width and height for the entire canvas size. I'm going to go and fill the entire canvas with the color of black. And so you have to say that you want it to be black. And then you need to say that you want to draw a filled in with the color black rectangle. Start in the upper left-hand corner. And then this is going to be canvas width and canvas height. So there we went. We went and cleared it and filled it. Now I want to draw my paddles. And they're rectangles also. I need to change the color on them though to white, because if they're black, you won't be able to see them. And then I got to draw all of those rectangles. So let's just go here, drop that in there. The position is going to be whatever the player X position is, as well as the player Y position. And then it's going to be the player width as well as the player height. Going to also do the same for our AI player. So this is just going to be AI player. Paste those in there. And that is how we draw our paddles. Another thing, I need to draw my ball, of course. And how you do that is just fill rectangle again. Let's just copy this because it's going to be the same. And the only difference is I have to change all these to balls. So just ball and ball and ball. And then finally ball again. If you guys like this tutorial, I will make even more games. I then want to go and handle my scores. So I'm going to go and define the font that I want to use on my game board. I'm going to set it at 80 pixels. And I'm going to use Arial. I'm going to say that I want this text to be aligned with the center of the screen. And then I have to draw my scores. So I'm going to say fill text. And I already have this style here set for white, so I don't need to worry about doing anything with that. And this score I'm going to have the player score. And I need to turn it into a string so that I can draw it. And then based off of that drawing that I showed you a little bit ago, I'm going to say that I want the canvas width divided by 2 and then minus 300. And I want it to be 100 down from the top of our screen. Do the same thing for the AI player. And this is going to be plus 300. Also, I'm going to want to be able to handle if somebody won. So I'm going to say if player's score is equal to 2. You can obviously change this if you want to have the game be longer. Well, then I want to draw on the screen again. And I'm going to say fill text. And I'm going to put player wins. And I'm going to put this in the center of our screen. So just go width divided by 2. And then 300 from the top of the screen. Then I'm going to set game over to true so that I'll know that I should stop playing the game. Going to do the same thing for the AI player. So just change this to AI player. And then we'll say AI wins. Everything else can stay the same. And game over can also be true. All right, so that is how we're going to draw. The next thing we need to do is to update the screen. So how are we going to handle this? This is basically where all the logic is going to be for our entire program. So this is called update. Now I have to think about what sort of things I want to do. Well, I don't want to update anything if the game is over. So game over, that means basically nothing gets done. And I put the exclamation mark in here so that if game over comes back as true, we turn it into false. Okay, so that means we can go ahead and update stuff. So what sort of things do I want to handle? Well, I want to handle if the ball scores on our player and what's going to happen in those situations. So I'm going to say if the ball X position is less than or equal to 0, well, that means the ball has scored on me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call a function that is going to reset my ball back into the position, the beginning of the game board. And I'm going to pass in both the winner as well as the loser in that situation and handle that. Also, I'm going to need to be able to handle if the ball hits on the right side of the screen, scoring on the AI character. So in that situation, I'll throw this in here exactly the same, except this is going to be greater than. The X position is greater than or equal to. And this is going to be the canvas width minus the ball width, because we don't want the ball to be going off the canvas. And again, reset player, except in this situation, I won and the AI lost. So good stuff. So what exactly is the reset ball function going to do? Let's go and create it. So function and reset ball. It's going to go and receive who scored as well as who lost and handle everything accordingly. Well, I'm going to go and get who scored, which is going to be an object, and increase the value of the score by 1, and that's what those two pluses do. I'm then going to want to reset the ball. So we'll go, maybe I want to also increase the ball speed. This is something that's optional, obviously. So ball speed is equal to whatever the current ball speed is, and we could do something like 0.2 or something like that. And then I'm going to create a brand new ball in the center of the screen. So I'll say new ball and pass in the new ball speed. I'm then going to set the target for the ball to be equal to whoever lost. And then I'm going to throw a delay inside of there, or reset the delay back to whatever the current time is. And again, you get that by calling get time. And that's everything the reset ball function does. So what else are we going to need up here to update? So we want to handle if the ball hits the top or the bottom of the screens and then go and reverse it so that it bounces off of it. So we'll say something like if ball Y position is less than or equal to 0. Well, in that situation, I'm going to set its movement speed going downwards, or movement direction. So we go move Y is equal to direction down. So it makes sense. We're going to do the same thing for our ball again. If Y is greater than or equal to the canvas height, again, I'm going to use ball height here because I do not want the ball to go off the screen. In that situation, I'm going to set it to up. Then I want to be able to handle moving the player paddle whenever they're pressing down on our buttons. So I'm going to say if player move is equal to direction down. Well, in that situation, I'm going to change my player Y position, and I'll go and increase that by whatever the current speed capabilities of my player are. And then I'll say else if that is not true, but the player movement direction is equal to up. Well, in that situation, I'm going to set my player Y position to be minus the player speed. Another thing I'm going to need to do here is keep my player from moving off the board. So I'm going to say if player Y, their Y position, is less than 0. Well, then I'm going to say that player Y is going to be stuck at having the value of 0. Else, if player with the Y position is greater than or equal to canvas height minus the player height, well, in that situation, the player's Y position is going to be equal to the canvas height minus the player height. And that will keep the player on the screen. I just thought of something. I've been coding here for a long time. I should go check my progress. But to do so, I'm going to have to handle these move paddle functions down here. So they're pretty simple. I'm going to just accept the keyboard input as we saw up here in our setup, where we set up the add event listener. So whenever the key goes down, we're going to call move player paddle. Whenever it goes back up, we're going to call stop player paddle. So let's go and just create those. Move player paddle. And it's going to receive the key that was actually clicked on. Then I'm going to check that if the game is currently in running mode. So I'll say, is it running? And if it's equal to false, then I'm going to say that I want running to be set to true. And then I'm going to call for my game loop to run over and over again. And how you do that is you go request animation frame. And I'm going to call the function that I'm going to create here in a minute called game loop. And that's also going to start our game. And then I need to do different things depending upon what key was clicked on. To find out what key was clicked on, you go key code, and I'm going to say that I want to receive input from the up arrow as well as the W key, so they can use either one. So I'm going to say if the key code is equal to 38, or the key code, or the key they clicked on, key code is equal to 87. Well, in that situation, I'm going to change the move direction for my player to be equal to the direction up. And if they press the down arrow or the S key in that situation, so I just have to change these. So let's change this to 40 and let's change this to 83. Then the move direction is going to be set for down. And the game loop here, which is right here, function game loop. I'm going to create that as well. And just so this all works without errors, save that. And then to stop the player paddle, create our stop player paddle function. It's going to receive an event. And then I'll say player move is equal to direction stopped, so that it stops moving on the screen. Got that set. Now let's go and check to see how our code is looking. And everything looking pretty good. So we got our scores on here, the paddles on here, and the balls here, and we have no errors over in our little console. And you can get that in Chrome just by going View, Developer, and Developer Tools right there. Now we'll get back into our update area and make everything work with our logic. So what do I want to add next time? Make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, I'm inside of update. All right, so what do I want to do? One thing I'd like to do is add a delay after a score and things like that. And then also see that I currently have a player that the ball is aimed at. So I'm going to say add a delay, and let's go and create that function as well. So how we're going to add a delay is just to return new date, call get time like we did before, which is going to be the current time, and then we're going to subtract from it the delay amount that we want. And let's say that we want to delay it by 1 second. Okay, seems like enough. So there, that's all you need to do to add a delay into our game. Back into update, and now we're going to be able to check if we're going to move the ball or not. So we're going to delay for 1 second, and then we're going to check if we currently have a target for our ball before we try to move the ball. And then we want to move the ball towards the target. And how you do that is you go the move direction and set it equal to the target for our ball. And if the target for our ball is the player, then we're going to set the move direction for our ball to be equal to the left because the player is on the left. And otherwise, the move direction is going to be set for the right, back towards the AI. I'd like to throw in some randomization so that sometimes the ball is going to go up and sometimes it's going to go down. So to do that, we can say move Y is going to be equal to, and then give it either the option of up or the option of down. And then we can randomize which one comes out. And we're going to have to round this to an integer, which is going to be either the first one or the second one. And then we will just go math random to randomly either pick an up or down position for our ball. I want to start my ball from the middle of the screen. So canvas, whatever the height is, divided by 2 is how we go and get the center. And then I want to nullify the target because the target at this point is going to constantly be changing as the ball repeatedly moves back and forth. So I'll say target for ball is going to be equal to null, which means nothing. Okay, so there, we got that set up now. Next thing we want to do is move the ball based off of the move y and move x values that we just set in our code. So we'll say if the ball move y is equal to direction up. Well, in that situation, I then want to decrement the value of y, which is in the upper left-hand corner, by whatever the ball speed is each time. And else, if the ball move y is equal to direction down, well, in that situation, going to do the opposite. So go and get this guy, throw this in there, and increment it. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing now to handle the movement on the x-axis for our ball. So I'm going to say if ball move x is equal to the direction left, well, in that situation, the ball x is going to be less than or equal to whatever the ball speed is. Then I'm going to say if the move x is equal to right, well, then I'm going to increment the x. Whoops, make sure it's lowercase, and use the ball speed each time. All right, so got balls moving, got all kinds of stuff. Now I need to handle the AI up and down movement. So I'm going to say if AI player y is greater than the ball y minus the AI player height divided by 2, well, in that situation, I'm going to then check if the ball move x direction is equal to direction. Is it moving to the right? And if it is, I'm going to say that I want my AI player y to decrement by whatever the AI player speed is. Else, I'm going to do the opposite. So go and get this, throw that in there, and I'm going to increment it. Oh, you know what? Actually, I don't see any reason to do that. So let's just get rid of that altogether. All right, gone. Okay, now I need to also handle this on the y-axis. So I'm going to say if AI player y is less than the ball y minus AI player height divided by 2. And then I'm also going to check if the ball move x direction is equal to the right. Well, in that situation, I can say AI player y, and we want to increment that by the AI player speed. Almost forgot, I want to make sure my AI player doesn't fall off the board, and we can go and copy the code that I have up here. So let's just go and grab this guy, copy that, bring it down here. So I'm going to say if AI player y is ever less than or less than 0, then I want to set my AI player y to 0. Else, if AI player y is ever greater than or equal to the canvas height and the AI player height, then I want to set my AI player, their y position anyway, to the canvas height minus the AI player height. Okay, good stuff. Now I need to handle ball collisions, which is going to be a little bit more complicated, so let's think about that. Okay, so if I'm wondering, did the ball actually hit the paddle? What I got here is a situation in which we have a ball and we have a paddle, and the top of the ball is perfectly lined up with the top of the paddle. However, obviously they're not hitting. What I'm going to need to do is find out if the ball's x position, which is going to be 0, minus the width. See, we start in the upper left-hand corner, and this is 15 pixels right here. Well, we need to find out if it's less than or equal to the paddle's x position, which in this situation is going to be equal to 30. So in this situation, that indeed is going to be true. Then what we need to do is verify if the ball's x position is greater than or equal to the paddle's x position minus the paddle's width. In this situation, you see that that indeed is no. So that means the ball, that's the proof right here that the ball did not hit the paddle. We're also, even though we already got our answer, we're going to verify that the paddle and the ball are on the same coordinate basis, meaning that the ball fits within the top of the paddle and the bottom of the paddle. How we do that is we say the ball's y position minus 15, is it less than or equal to paddle y? In this situation, that's yes. Then we're going to also check if the ball's y position, again, upper left-hand corner, is equal to 0, is greater than or equal to paddle y minus 65. That also is true. So yes, indeed, the ball falls within the confines of the paddle. However, it is not touching the paddle. And basically, we just have to take this logic that we have here on the screen and write it into code. All right, so now we just need to come in here and model what we just looked at on the little diagram. So I'm going to say if ball x minus ball width is less than or equal to player x and ball x is greater than or equal to player x minus the player width, well, in that situation, I'm going to then also verify, because remember we have to verify the x and the y. If ball at y, in this situation, already did x, is less than or equal to player y plus player height and ball y plus the ball height is greater than or equal to the player y position, well, in that situation, I want to move the ball towards the right side of the screen. So I'll say ball move y or move x is going to be equal to the direction right, and let's also play the beep sound. And to do that, you go beep sound and play, and that plays the beep sound. And that should be pretty much everything. Now what I need to do is handle if the ball collides with the AI paddle. So I'm going to say if, actually, let's not type all that out. Let's just copy it. So I'm going to say if, get all this, paste it down here. And here I'll say ball x minus the ball width is less than or equal to the AI player, and their x position, and ball x is greater than or equal to the AI player, again, their x position, minus the AI player, their width. And then down here, I'll say if ball y's position is less than or equal to AI player's y position plus AI player's height, and ball y plus the ball height is greater than or equal to the AI player's y position, then I want the ball x position to go in the opposite direction, left. And play a sound again. All right, and I think I have everything pretty much done, except for our game loop. So what's the game loop going to do? Well, the game loop is going to call the update function, which is going to update all the calculations, and then we're going to call the draw function. Then after that, if we want to keep looping for forever, well, we obviously don't want to keep looping for forever if the game is over. So we're going to say if not game over, well then I'm going to call request animation frame and then call the game loop again to keep running itself. And that's how you get a function to run itself over and over and over again until this condition is no longer true. So let's save it and see if we made any mistakes. Reload it. Everything looks like it's working. Let's see if it actually is. So, got an error. Reference error. Player move is not defined, and this says on line 109. And we just need to put a period inside of there. Save it. See if we got any more errors. Reload the page again, and it looks like it's working. And I'm going to lose on purpose. Okay, still no errors. Lost on purpose, and the AI won. All right, so there you go, guys. Looks like everything is working perfectly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that tutorial. To end this video, I'd like to thank all of the people that actually watched the entire video. My channel would not exist without the 3% of you. So just wanted to say thank you. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.